Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Clangin and Bangin with Mikey, episode 215. And today we're gonna talk about, what we're gonna talk about today is knowing when to walk away from something that doesn't serve you. What I mean by that is friendships, relationships, jobs, whatever it is, right? Like you don't have to stay stuck in a situation where you just ain't seen, you ain't heard, you're not valued, you're just not thought of. And a lot of people stay stuck in a situation and then they wake up 7 years later like, yo, I don't know this individual. He or she's changed, yada yada yada. It's like, and it's like at the end of the day, it's while it's unfortunate and it's not something that that you should definitely take lightly. Um, a lot of it too has to do with the fact that sometimes people aren't ready for what you bring. They're not ready to deal with conflict. They're not ready to deal with all the emotions that come with it, right? Early in my relationship, I have it was brought out to me that I kept shutting people out, kept shutting down, and didn't really know how to emotionally be vulnerable with not just my girl, but just people in general. And I still struggle with that. You know? I don't really feel the need to do small talk. I don't really feel the need to do X, Y, and Z. It's like they're just not in me, you know. And I think that's something that I definitely have to work towards, and I definitely have to be better at, because when you don't take the time to get better and you don't take the time to understand what you're going through, you always have a tendency to always get the same result. And I've been looking up the different types of partners and whatnot, right? And I'm more of an not really in an avoidant, but I have avoidant like tendencies. Where when I don't feel safe, I don't talk. When I feel overstimulated, I don't talk. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that part of it has to do with my childhood. Um, a lot of it has to do with the fact that I grew up in a household that was a place where your emotions weren't talked about. I grew up in a household where it was like we doing it my way and that's it. I don't care how you feeling. I don't care if you sick. I don't care if you X, Y, and Z. I don't give a fuck. And while that serves you to a point, it also doesn't serve you at all. Because it's teaching you not to even self-advocate for yourself. So nowadays, at 36, I'm like, yo, no, motherfucker, we ain't doing that. And I come across brash, and a lot of the times I come across difficult because it's like, yo, like, no, like, we're not doing that. Like, we're not going to go down that road. We're not gonna do X, Y, and Z because I know where this shit goes. And a lot of the times, when you're not healed and when you're not able to articulate yourself in an appropriate way, you end up in situations where it's instead of you having conversations as to what's really bothering you, you have arguments. instead of you handling things in a certain way, um, you don't. Instead of you going to therapy and getting your shit checked out, you don't. That in turn creates a traumatic generational trauma, you know, where I remember once my father told me when I was in high school, he said, yo, I'm a I'm gonna send you to a therapist to find out how you think. And then my mother said something. Um, she said, yeah, like you should go. And I'm like, what for? The problem's right here. I don't need a fucking therapist to tell me what the fucking problem is. The problem is that nigga. While I have my mixed emotions about the dude and everything, it's like um I said this the other day. I'm trying my hardest to forget that man because he inflicted so much pain on people that he's not worth bringing up. Yes, the nigga provided. Yes, he, house, clothes, food, all that shit. But when it came time to shower your kids with love, niggas ain't do that. When it came time to talk about your feelings and emotions, niggas ain't doing that. Growing up, I never saw what healthy communication looked like. I didn't know that it was healthy to disagree and not have an argument with it about it until I moved out on my own and I was making my own mistakes. I didn't know that um, it wasn't healthy to not, to. I mean, it wasn't healthy to shut down and not understand that you can't be doing that to somebody that you in a relationship, right? You can't be doing that to somebody who you quote unquote say that you love, but you ain't talking to. And a lot of it has to do with me and unlearning a lot of unhealthy habits, a lot of bullshit, and addressing my traumas and triggers because it's nobody else's responsibility except mine. I'm never going to sit there and say that, oh, well, like, you triggered me for X, Y, and Z. You're like, no, no, no. I can say that I was triggered and I can tell you why I was triggered. I'm never going to tell you that it's your fault that I'm triggered because it's not your fault. It's my fault. And when you understand that it's okay to have, you know, your feelings, your emotions, it's okay not to stay in them though. I, I've been recently saying this quote saying that it's like when you speak from your feelings, you have a tendency to be highly dramatic and highly just disrespectful in a way, right? Like you're just grasping at shit. It's like you're trying to. It's like when you make spaghetti and you're trying to throw that shit against the wall to see what the fuck sticks, right? Um. So that's your feeling. You're just basically throwing shit against the wall, hoping something will stick. And the difference with your emotions is like you're able to look at the situation to be like, oh, okay, I feel this way, but my emotions are something else. Because your emotions, they review the entire situation. It's not, you know, in the moment where you're like, yeah, 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 yeah. You're like, no, like you're not doing that. And what I've been doing ever since I was in my early 20s is like, yo, okay, right now I don't have the bandwidth for this. I don't have the mental clarity. I don't have the presence of calmness in me right now to deal with this. I'm gonna need me a couple days, and I'm gonna just need me to um um what do you call that? Evaluate the situation. My girl calls it a 3-day rule. Um, it depends on the situation, and it depends what we're talking about. And sometimes it takes me 3 days. Sometimes it takes me 3 hours. you know, but I've gotten better with that too, because it's like what I notice is that I can't take um exorbitant amounts of time to understand, to go through something, to overthink something, right? And that's what it is, man. I think at the end of the day, you have to understand that while your coping mechanisms may have worked back in the day, like for mine, they did, because it was never. I was never in a relationship where I had somebody who actually cared about me. It was always a one-sided thing, a one-sided relationship. A situationship. You know, it was always one-sided. It was always me kind of putting in the energy into the situation, and then like waiting to get poured back into. And majority of the time, it never happened. Um, and I think that's probably what led me to be on demon time in my 20s, and majority of my 20s and most of my early 30s is like, that's what led me to be on demon time, was the fact that it's like I got tired of pouring into people and I had people pour into me. And in the process of me doing that, I ended up creating a void, or a divide where emotionally, you know, my needs wasn't met. Physically, everything else is met. And y'all know what I mean by that. Um, and I think it's imperative to understand that was a coping mechanism for me. Yeah, I can be that funny dude. I can laugh you out your, out of your panties and panties and your bra easily. But if that's all this is, I don't want that. And it's taken me a long time to realize that, yo, it was like, my boy, you have to get better. You have to understand yourself better, because it's like you can't be going around doing that shit and expecting, that to be sufficient, because it's not. And I was recently asked if I had ever planned to get married or have kids. Getting married, yeah, yeah, that would definitely, that's definitely on the goal. That's definitely on the bucket list. But that would require a lot of internal work for me to before I ever get involved in a situation like that. Having kids, as great as they are, and a lot of people tell me this, well, like, you'll be a great dad, this and this and that. I'm like, I don't know, and that's the part of me that scares me, is the fact that I don't know what I'm gonna be like, but I do know what I came from, all the abuse, whether it's physical, mental, verbal, and It's just something that scares me. It scares me because uh, it's just something that I can't. I don't. I don't know what the future holds, and I can try my damnedest not to be like my old man. Yeah, I can try my damnedest not to have the anger issues he had, not to have the short fuse that he had, the disrespect that he had towards my moms, the physical beatings that I got. And a lot of them, I don't, a lot of them I don't remember what they were for. And I think that's probably not not if one of the reasons, but the main reasons is like I am a product of him, but I also know what I went through was bullshit. And while having children is great, I'm also mindful of who if I have kids and who I have kids with, because that's the other end of the coin. Because it's like, okay, you can have children, but like what other person that you have kids with, you have to vet them too. Because I see a lot of people who have kids with the wrong individuals, and now I'm like damn, and it's like maybe a nigga catch, you know, 36, no kids, never been married, like never been through anything ultra traumatic in that way. Because I've seen more people get divorced and have successful marriages. Yeah, I've seen people I know be married for 40 plus years, get served divorce papers in the mail. Yeah, I've seen people get married, you know, within 6 months of knowing each other, and 3 years later they're divorced, stating all the shit that if they would have took the time to know somebody else or know that other individual, they probably would have been like, you know what, this ain't it for me. Like, nah, this isn't a move. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's like, and I've also seen people get married and literally get divorced a year later. And it doesn't matter the age range, right? Remember what I said. I've seen people who are married for 40 years, 40 plus years get divorced. I've seen people you know, get married after 10 years of quote unquote dating, and they get divorced six months later. It's not about the time, man. It's about knowing your person. It's about knowing who they are. And it's like, and for me, that's the most important thing. Um, I gotta see how you handle conflict. I gotta see how you do X, Y, and Z. I have to see how you do everything, because it's important for me that we don't screw this up. Now, are there gonna be days where I'm gonna be like, I can't stand this motherfucker. I can't stand her, or whatever it is. But will I ever stop loving him? No. I may not like you in the moment. I may not jive with all the bullshit you do. I may not be, what's the word? Empathetic to, to your sarcasm, Or I may wake up one day and be like, you know what? Nah, this ain't it. And then I got to jump start the day, right? And like me and my partner, we was talking about that the other day. And he said, man, he's like, because I'm very, very keen, and I'm very self-aware as to what I have to do as an individual. And sometimes in certain situations, Not that I forget, but I get wrapped up in everything. And I was telling my partner, I was like, dog, it's like sometimes you have to leave people where they at, bro. Like you can't force people to level up. You can't force them to see the potential that you see in them because that doesn't work. You know, like then like nigga, you ain't them and they ain't you. And I think that's a lot of the times people will try to hold on to something, and it's like no, it doesn't work. Um, and one thing my partner did tell me, he's like, man, he's like, the one thing I admire about you is that you are very good at setting boundaries. Um, because I've told people, you know, like, yo, like, no, we can't be friends. It's like, you know, I know what I want, and you don't want the same thing, so let's keep it a buck. No, we can't be friends. No, like, no, we can't do X, Y, and Z because what's the point? And a lot of people a lot of people have probably have been hurt by that. I'm like, no, it's like because you deserve the best version of me. You know, not a cookie cutter version, not a wishy washy version of me, but the best version of me. And if you can't get that, or if you don't want the best version of me, or if you don't want me as a whole, then let me go. Like, don't sit there and like try to be, you know, make space for a motherfucker that you know wants something else, but you can't give that. That's selfish. You know, that's selfish to do that because not only are you blocking your own blessing, but you're blocking somebody else from getting what they deserve too. Um, and that's the worst thing you can do is end up stringing somebody else along, and it's like, and that's why people crash out, and that's why people end up in situations that they end up in because it's like, oh, it's like, let's say this shit was going on for 3, 4, 5, 10 years or whatever it is. It's like, and after a while, you're like, yo, like this doesn't serve me, you know. Or like if they just wanted a random hookup and it develops into something else, and it's like, or like they wanted friendship and now y'all fucking. It's like, okay, it's like, how do you navigate that? Because now you're dealing with a whole plethora of different emotions and feelings that you wasn't equipped to deal with. And I think a lot of the times, when people just don't have solid boundaries, and when people just they don't stand by their boundaries. You know, it's like an invisible line. It's like, oh well, I meant this, but we're doing that. Like, man, it's like, what? Make it make sense. Because it's like, at the end of the day, you don't you don't have control with the other person's how they're gonna react to this. Like, you don't have the control of how somebody else is gonna feel about this, right? And you can say all this shit, but your actions always speak louder than words. And I think that's the most important thing, man, is to have your actions line up with your words. Because if your actions don't line up with your words, a lot of people will use that against you. You know, they'll find ways to twist. They'll find ways to make it seem like, oh, well, you said this, but we was doing that. So what the fuck do you really mean? And reality is like, they're not wrong for asking that because they have every right to ask that. It's like the whole friends with benefits thing, right? Women will say that, and then they'll get mad when the guy starts treating them like that. I'm like, well, what you want? It's like you're cool with one thing, but yet, you know, you get mad when a brother starts doing that to you. It's like, okay, you don't want a relationship, but you want something casual. I gave you that. But yet, you're mad when I start talking to somebody else. But you don't want what I want. You know, all we having is arrangement. You know, and it's like, and a lot of times when you reiterate that to them, and they're like, what? Like, yeah, this is what you said you wanted. So this is what you got. If you wanted the boyfriend version of me or something solid, you should have said that. Or you should have stopped us in the middle of us doing this shit. Be like, hey, you know, well, I want to put a label on this. I want to know what this is, because in the beginning, yes, I wanted one thing, but now I want something else. I don't want you to be talking to other women. I don't want you to be talking to other dudes or whatever it is. I want this for me. I want this shit to be exclusive. And a lot of the times, people don't know how to have that conversation. They don't know how to sit there and be like, yo, I know I said I wanted this in the beginning, but now I want something else. Can you give me that? Or do you have the capacity to give me that? And if you do, great. If you don't, that's great too. Because there's nothing worse than being stuck in a situation. I'm not even stuck, but staying in the situation and you can't give them what they want. And at the same time, you can't get mad when you decide to stay. And that's the most difficult part, man, is like, to wrap all of this up, it's imperative that people understand that your feelings and your emotions are valid, but they're only valid to you. So you have to communicate really, really well. And you have to understand that, okay, like, yes, all this shit happened. But at the same time, how do I go about repairing something that I don't want to break? Because I still want you around. I don't have the bandwidth for that particular, capacity. And you have to tell that to people. And you have to keep reiterating that to people. Because a lot of the times people will be like, but, like, no. It's like, this is what it is. And it's easier said than done because you're dealing with other people's emotions and feelings. And a lot of the times people will get wrapped up in situations that are like way above their control. But getting back to my original point about all this, man, is like, when you grow up in a chaotic environment like how I grew up, it takes a lot to unlearn those triggers and traumas. And sometimes those triggers and traumas will pop up in your relationship. And you're like, damn, I thought I fucking fixed this. I thought, I thought this version of me was dead and gone. But it's not. And once you recognize that and you're able to fix it, and you're able to do the work, whether it's you talking to your partners, whether it's you going to therapy, you opening up to your girl. Because shit, nigga, I did number 3, boy, that my shit was like Niagara Falls, dog, if you know what I mean. And you have to find ways to be vulnerable, not just for the person that you're with, the person that you love, but you have to be vulnerable with yourself too. You gotta understand that it's a safe space for you too. And I think it's imperative that people understand that. You cannot be a safe space for somebody else or other people if your walls and your roof isn't safe for you. All right, y'all. This is about 28 minutes of your life that y'all won't get back. Hope y'all keep it at 4 Ps. Private player, positive pushing. Love y'all. See y'all next week. And like I always say, know your worth because you're better than what you are. Peace. All right, y'all. Happy Sunday.